You see, there are certain things that by their very nature are real. And as human beings, by our very nature, we doubt them. One of them is when you tell someone that there's a way in which you can buy a house that can, A, suit your needs and also suit the needs and the capacity of your pocket. Mm-hmm. Now, Diamond Trust Bank is saying precisely that. And it isn't a fairy tale. They're saying, look, buying a house can be an onerous task. It can be difficult. It can be expensive. We understand that. We are a bank. Mm-hmm. So we've come up with this program that you may want to hear. And if you do hear, you may want to be part of. Okay? The following information is what you need to understand. One, right. Diamond Trust Bank has branches all over the country, perhaps even in East Africa. Diamond Trust Bank have this particular facility at a very, very special rate. 9% interest for 10 years, 9.75% for 25 years. That's one. Say check. Mm-hmm. Check. Then they are saying there are no hidden charges. Check. They're saying if you have a schedule of payment and you pay ahead of that schedule, there are no penalties. Check. Right. This is really good. You're a wonderful student.
Thank you, please.
And then they're also saying it doesn't really matter whether you're self-employed or whether you have a pay slip or whether you're in the diaspora. Now, this is the clincher. You have a pay slip. You're paid. You're in employment. They can afford you up to 105%. Not 100, 105. So 100 for the house, 5% for the cost of actually ensuring that you get this money. In the diaspora, up to 80%. Now, all you need to do to ensure that you join this delightful, wonderful bandwagon is you either email mortgages@dtbafrica.com or you visit any Diamond Trust branch.
All right.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
Good stuff. Great. Okay. So as we get into a conversation this morning, Ahmed Farah is the Chief Executive Officer, CEO of the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce, and he's here with us this morning. Ahmed, good morning.
Good morning to you.
How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. And thank you for having me this morning.
It's good to have you here.
Yeah.
And looking into a number of conversations about why Kenya should, must, shall tap into the international markets and what benefits then are there. We'll get into the details of that. But CT is going to welcome you today with today's proverb. And then you can interpret that for us and tell us what it means to you. Right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
This is our final day for proverbs from the country of Niger, the Republic of Niger. Largest by landmass country in West Africa. Yesterday I was generous. I gave them first position on the continent. I was immediately corrected.
You've docked them some points.
Yes. I decided, let me just give these brothers a boost. I was told, CT, keep the boost. They are not number one. Please get your geography right. So I organized my geography and I got it right. Okay. The largest country in Africa by landmass is Algeria.
Right.
Followed very closely by DRC. Okay? Followed not so closely by Sudan, the country that is now sort of like going apart at the seams, followed by Libya. This one has gone off the seams quite a bit. Followed by Chad.
Oh, yeah?
Then we have Niger at number 6. Okay?
Okay.
Right. The proverb. You know, I learned that the people of Niger, what are they called, by the way?
Nigerian. Okay, if you say it in French.
French is?
Nigerian.
Okay, and if I'm saying it in English? Nigerian.
The people of Niger.
So you don't go rrr, you go zzz.
Nigerian.
Right.
Nigerian.
So not Nigerian.
No, Nigerian is from Nigeria.
It's really
so
close.
Niger.
For those who pronounce it as Niger.
Anki, Nigerian is.
I know, I'm being careful.
Okay, no matter how good you are to a goat, it will still eat your yam. Meaning, if you're one of these animal lovers where you even buy it a hat and then you buy it a T-shirt written, I am not a goat.
I'm a goat. Yes. I'm the
goat. It will still eat your yam.
Oh, yes. And Gochi is not the greatest of all time.
Yes, but the T-shirt is
the
not
young
at you.
generation.
You're the one wearing the T-shirt. You can wear it, but the goat is also wearing the T-shirt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ahmed, how would you interpret that?
I'm fine, thank you. This early morning. Really delighted to be here, and I'm really honored to really be your guest this morning. Happy to discuss the areas of interest that you have and any other matter that I think might come through.
Any other matter?
Now, the first
Yes,
matter, I want you to tell us how you would interpret that proverb.
Well, I think that proverb, being Africa as it is, I think it's common to most communities. I think the message it sends is everything has its time and place. Everything has its time and place. You need the goat. You have to take care of it, and the goat needs to take care of itself. And a time will come when the goat will be needed, and the goat will be taken care of in a different way. So my interpretation to it is as that everything has its place and time.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Indeed.
Ramadan is not very far away.
We'll need it.
Yes, this particular subject becomes of importance at
some point.
Yes.
Indeed.
Yes.
Okay, so I mean, from the very beginning, walk us through the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. What does this particular
Organization.
what does the organization do? What is its mandate?
So we are a business members organization, the largest and the oldest in the country at that, with presence across the country. So we're the only ones with a footprint in each of the 47 counties in Kenya, with our membership of no less than 50 companies as our members, representing all sectors of our economy. So our vision really as a Kenya National Chamber of Commerce is to support this business community, these business members, to create a vibrant and prosperous business environment for the country. We do this through facilitating trade, through trade promotion, trade expos, creating markets for our members, giving market intelligence, but also conducting B2B connections, B2C connections for our members, but also working closely with the relevant arms in the country to promote and support creation of a business environment that is going to allow our competitiveness to remain. It's been a challenge over time, but it's something that we do it on a day-to-day basis for our members. The largest members base for us are SMEs.
Okay.
And we're very focused to see how we can support our SMEs grow, access markets, but also position themselves in a way that they can start repowering their factories, which have gone down for a while. They've shut down for a while, yes.
Yeah. So do you look into, like, if we talk about factories that have shut down, you look into the reasons as to why they have,
Yes.
and then are able to bring them back on track. What are some of those that you've seen have been the reasons why business over time has shut down? I mean, CT keeps talking about the cottage industries that existed, a while back, and a good number of those don't exist today because of certain issues. I don't know whether it is capital issues or whether it is, relevance issues anymore. Cotton industries, for example, huge factories that existed, 10, 20 years ago that don't exist today. How do you look through some of those?
10, 20, some 30, 40. You see, if you look at what we've just been told about the function and the nature of the Kenya National Bureau, I think here, the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
Here, me, I'm going Kenya Bureau of Statistics. Chamber of Commerce is, you have to ask, what's the history behind it? Why was it felt that we needed to have a Chamber of Commerce?
To begin with.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So Chamber of Commerce is a platform that connects businesses, a platform that create markets for businesses, a platform that provides intelligence for our businesses, and is their voice when they're going through difficult times. Basically, that's the essence of the Chamber of Commerce. And it draws its membership, like I said, from all sectors of the economy and also all levels of businesses, from the border riders to the large enterprises.
So it does that internally. And then there's what it does externally.
Yes.
Yes. What are these things that it does externally?
Like I mentioned earlier on, we're there to open doors for our businesses in international markets, simply put.
All right.
So international trade has always been there. The Kenyan National Chamber of Commerce is there to facilitate that, to provide the export promotion services for our members through trade promotion, through exhibitions abroad in markets of interest, through B2B connections where we find specific business in our country that has specific area of interest in another market destination that is an export market for us. We provide those linkages. We're the only business membership of organization that has chambers across all other markets. So if we are interested in, for instance, the European market, we have European chambers, and we have chambers for specific European member states that we can relate and connect with for our members.
So how do you play in with national government? How do you play with G2G agreements that exist? Just recently, we've seen that the government has made an agreement with the UAE. We see that the Africa, Growth and Opportunity Act. We see the trade agreements that are made with Africa with different nations. So how does the chamber play with those agreements that are made on a national scale?
That's a very good question. So, firstly, during negotiations of those bilateral trade agreements, we are usually in the room. And this is to ensure that the private sector voice is heard and taken care of as those dotting of I's and crossing of T's are done in the bilateral trade agreements. Then the next step is to maximize on the benefits of that bilateral trade agreement. And how do you do this? You come now and domesticate. You customize the opportunities the trade agreement has provided to Kenyan private sector.
Yeah.
And we do that by now unpacking the trade agreement, sensitizing our members on the opportunities on specific line benefits. Most of them will be duty-free, quota-free access to that market. And we go along now to start sensitizing our members in partnership with the relevant arms of government. Like, for instance, from the EU, we're working closely with the State Department of Trade to sensitize our members, the SMEs mostly, on the unique standards that are demanded of the markets that we are getting access to. SPS standards, quality standards, basically market entry requirements.
All right.
That is one side of it. Then we also, like for instance, the one you just made reference to, the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, which is the most recently signed. Just 3 or 4 weeks ago, we started engagement with the UAE Embassy as Kenya National Chamber of Commerce here in the country. We've started discussing on determining how we can pull together private sector through establishment of a joint business council between Kenyan businesses and UAE businesses that are going to meet regularly and handhold literally our private sector to make sure that the spirit and ambition of the agreement is kept alive and it's extended to our private sector.
There's something called the is it CF conference?
World Chamber Federation Conference.
World Chamber Confederation Conference. You know what is interesting? There's another one called World Conference of Families.
Okay. You just thought you'd throw that in.
No, it's there. Tell us about this and why it is that it's important that we in Kenya should pay attention to it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, this is a big deal. We're extremely honored and privileged as a country to be hosting the World Chamber Federation Summit that's happening in Africa for the first time. So all these Chamber of Commerces, including Kenya National Chamber of Commerce, have a home. And that home is the World Chamber Federation. It's a platform of over 3,000 chambers. And this is situated in Paris. What the WCF, World Chamber Federation, does on an annual basis, they organize summits across the world. bringing together chamber leaders, bringing together business leaders, bringing together policymakers to discuss topical issues of business. This is the first time it's coming to Africa. And it's being hosted in Nairobi at KNCCI on 9th to 11th of April. And for us, we're seeing it as an opportunity for meaningful conversations and partnerships to be created on matters trade, investments, and economic cooperation. So we actually didn't just get handed over this summit in Africa. It was a bidding contest, and we won it in a contest against Nigeria and South Africa. So we're not looking at only just bringing business leaders, chamber leaders, policymakers, innovators to Kenya to discuss matters trade and investments and economic cooperation, but also we've sold the magical aspect of Kenya. We were selling the naturally endowed, beautiful touristic features and attractions that we have for the world. And there will be also an opportunity for businesses, startups, innovators to carry out exhibitions. So this is the first time that this summit that is having on its side a platform for exhibitors to come and demonstrate their products, their services to the world.
All right. Now, I think that's really good for Kenya, but I want us to go a little deeper. I know you just touched on the surface why, what you're selling about Kenya. But if I'm, invested or interested, I would want to find out what makes Kenya, all right, an attractive location for global business, because I think that's where we are targeting the global, businesses and investors. So what really makes Kenya the place for them?
Well, so many good things are going on for us. We, for a fact, have a stable political and economic environment. Our macroeconomic indicators have been stable relative to the rest of the continent. We are the 29th fastest growing economy in the world, believe it or not. In terms of investment at momentum, in Africa, we are rated as the first in investment momentum. We received the highest startup capital in 2023 in Africa, for the first time trouncing Nigeria. Our human capital is rated number one on innovation and research. So there's so many good things working for us as a country. When it comes to geographical location, we are at a very strategic location, which is a gateway to East Africa and Africa at large. Logistics across Africa from Kenya is almost same for 5 hours across any part of Africa. We increase at a very rapid rate, becoming a hub for technology, finance, business, and commerce. And this augurs very well for our country as a platform for entry into Africa, as Africa comes together as one market.
Well, it's really pleasant to hear that good side of what it is. But of course, it would be fair to also try and demystify what is being said out there, or what other companies that are folded might use as their arguments, as far as Kenya as a business, hub would look like. If you've heard some of these, including the taxes, you've talked about political stability, but if you just try and demystify some of these things that might be repelling the good things that you're trying to do, it would be a good thing.
I think there are a few things that we have to put into perspective. The macro indicators across the world have been a challenge to most countries across all continents, not just Africa and not just Kenya. We've, as a world, come out from a difficult period through the COVID-19 pandemic.
True.
Global supply chains were disrupted. And this inevitably has affected all economies, including Kenya. Can we endeavor and push for a better business environment? Yes, and that's what we are there as Kenya National Chamber of Commerce, to try and enhance the voice of our private sector, address topical issues such as what you've just highlighted, tax. But let's not take away that from the opportunities Kenya presents.
Right.
Let's not take away that from the fact that Kenya remains an attractive investment destination hub. And that's what we're focusing on at the same time. So we have to run this on parallel. We have to continue voicing out for the private sector.
Right.
We have to continue advocating for a business environment that is conducive and will maintain our competitiveness, but at the same time leverage on the advantages and the values that Kenya presents to the international community on trade and investments.
And even so, why is it then a good thing that this summit is happening on the continent this year?
Why is it a good thing that it's happening?
Yeah.
Well, it brings the world to Africa. It positions and places Africa at the global stage on matters trade and investment. And it basically speaks to the world on Africa being not the next frontier.
The frontier.
It is the frontier. It's the present frontier for trade and investments. We look at this as an opportunity in Africa, by Africa for the world. So we're saying to the world, come and do business with us. We're not just focused on, we don't want to focus on just aid. We want to focus on partnerships. We want to focus on economic cooperation. We want to focus on trade. And we have enormous potential in Africa. We want to take to leverage that for Africans, but we are available to trade and work with the world. If you think about it, the marketplace for Africa is 1.3 billion people with a GDP of 3.4 trillion. It's projected by 2050 that to grow to 2.5 billion marketplace. It will be, if not the largest, one of the largest. And who is going to benefit from this if not Africans coming together and working together to promote inter-Africa trade? The total global trade from Africa is just less than 3%. Inter-Africa trade is about 13%, 14%. If you think about economies such as Europe, they trade between themselves to a level of 60% of total trade.
Right.
So the opportunities are immense, not just for the world, but more so for Africa.
I think that's a very interesting point that you bring, but how can we insist, because one of the main issues that we're talking about this morning is the need to then jump onto the international market stage and start to do business. Small businesses, large businesses, medium businesses. How can we jump onto the extra Africa trade without having raised the percentage of trade that African countries do with one another?
We have to trade with one another. That has to be our focus as an economy in Africa. And it's such a low-hanging fruit, and there's a lot of work that has been done, good work, through the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat. The Africa Agenda 2063 has clear dreams for Africa. And there are so many protocols that have been established already through the Secretariat that are opening up doors for businesses in Africa to work together. But international markets will still remain important. Just to give you a flavor of our economy as a country, our total exports in 2023 is just shy of $7.5 billion. But the total trade and opportunities across the world is $25 trillion. We have barely scratched the surface for the international market. So as African economies, we have to make a decision. We have to grow. We have to diversify economies. We have to value add the products that we provide. To which markets do we target? Again, it's going to be a strategic decision by each of the economies. But the African market presents enormous opportunity that we can tap, and we'll still continue trading and cooperating with international markets.
Let me give you a perspective.
Yeah.
If you look at Kenya, I'm looking at what the Minister for Finance said. He said the verified unpaid bills due to MSMEs were almost 480 billion. Okay.
Verified.
That's what he said, verified. Which,
you know what that suggests? It's more.
Yes.
But what has been verified?
Yes. And he says, and I'm saying this is roughly 95% of total unpaid bills.
Yeah.
Okay? Many of these people are your members.
100%.
Now, two questions. One, does the Chamber of Commerce have any clout? What does it do to enable their members to actually get paid? Okay, that's question number one.
Yeah.
Then I'm dovetailing it to the issue of trade that you say we must enhance and look at is it the global north and what it is that they're able to do. It's very simple. The industrialists and commercial enterprises have power and might. On our continent, it's the politicians who have power and might, and they make terrible business people by and large. So now, let's start with the first one. What is it that the Chamber of Commerce is doing to help the members get the money that is due to them? Because part of what hampers growth is something of this nature.
100%. I fully agree with you, Citi. The reason why our members are struggling is, and to the point that I made earlier on, our factories are shut. And for as long as they remain shut, it doesn't matter how many bilateral trade agreements you're going to sign as a country to act to open up markets for our members. They're not going to access those markets.
Right. All right.
You simply need finance.
You need financing. Let's take a break at this point. We're talking with Ahmed Farah, who is the CEO of the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and looking at why Kenya then does need to jump onto the international market and start to trade vigorously in that area. We'll come back from this and continue with that conversation. And 1 million people, that's a number. It's a big one. 155,000, another number. It's a big one. That's the number of people that get into the job market, of which some don't have the skills that they require to actually get into work or into the business fraternity. And what happens is that the KCB Foundation has seen this gap and said, let's see how we can connect these individuals with the skills that they need and eventually connect them to these markets. And they've been doing that. 155,000 people have been trained so far, and that number will continue growing. 18 to 35 get into a skills program for 6 months and thereafter get onto the job market or get into business. Find out more about this, KCB Group /foundation.
Dental tips brought to you by Sensodyne. The 2-minute rule. Brush smarter, not faster. Dentists recommend brushing for 2 minutes twice a day. Pair that with Sensodyne Toothpaste Advanced Daily Care.
Sensodyne gives you long-lasting protection against sensitivity. I recommend Sensodyne because it works. It's brilliant.
What we need is a stand-alone legislation that precisely safeguards and protects whistleblowers. We are not saying directly to incentivize our whistleblowers, no. What we are saying is that when we have a whistleblower come out and assets, funds are recovered, then that whistleblower should be rewarded with a certain percentage from that recovery.
The Malaysian industry has always put a lot of significant importance onto Kenya as a market. It's been a very important buyer.
The refining industry today in Kenya is probably about 2.2 million tons of capacity here from 13 different factories to produce that. The export duty for Malaysia is lower. Its quality is also superior. And that's why Malaysia has come out on tops with quality, delivery, and availability.
Star 811 star 801 hash to get Take It Slow by Ziki.
Joins us this morning, and I just want to go through a couple of questions that we have from folks who are coming here. I mean, in relation to the summit that's happening in Nairobi in April, And a question from David is, does the Chamber have the database of companies that are closed down, and why?
Yes, we do. We do engage regularly with the relevant arms of government that have a say on policy, regulatory, and legal matters to do with business. And these are issues that are of concern to all of us as a country, not just Kenya National Chamber of Commerce. And the matters are being addressed. In fairness, there's been a lot of consultative engagements between private sector and the government leadership. There are actions that have been identified. There are bills that are underway that are meant to address some of these contextual issues for business environment.
Yeah.
So it is a concern to all of us, and it is a pain to government, that I know firsthand, because we do interact with them on a regular basis, and we're looking at addressing them.
Okay. So, I mean, I can see the connection that businesses would want to become members of the chamber, because now from that, there's the opportunity for some of the things that we speak about now, being involved in this Africa-wide summit that allows people to showcase their businesses and such. So then the next question would be, how do then members become members, or how do businesses become members?
Yeah, so we have a very simple procedure that we take our members, companies to join us as members. We'll just take the statutory documentation like certificate of incorporation and confirmation on the CR12, on the ownership and what they do, and immediately onboard them. It is the easiest of the exercises that anyone can go through. It's so painless, it happens in minutes. But what is most important is the next question: how do we retain them as members? Okay. And this is where we focus our energy at Kenya National Chamber of Commerce to ensure that we create and enhance member value.
Yeah.
And the member value goes to the issues that we've been talking about: advocating for an environment that will keep them competitive, supporting their bottom line. Because we are there to support the bottom line of our members. And how do you support bottom line of our members? Is to create those markets, provide them with an opportunity to access those markets, and also access finance so that they can produce to access those markets. Yeah. So basically, in summary, that's the hypothesis at which Kenya National Chamber of Commerce operates in.
Mm-hmm. I know there's a lot of businesses, and it's a pool of them. But I'm curious to just if you could pick out some of the business sectors that are showing more promise for growth in Africa. Which ones would this be that are showing most of the promise for the growth of Africa as a continent?
Well, all sectors, to be fair, have enormous opportunity in Africa for growth. The thing that we have to do, and we have to continue doing as economies in Africa, is to focus on value addition.
Okay.
Looking at agriculture, our next steps have to be value addition. Looking at manufacturing, we have to go to the next level of not just assembling, but producing parts and putting together. Textiles and apparels, there's an increasing trend towards going to the final end. If you think backwards, most of the infrastructure laid out in Africa were geared towards extracting our resources. They're not geared towards connecting Africa as markets. So increasingly, we have, as Africans, work together to connect our markets in ways that doesn't just focus on extracting our raw materials to our seaports, whether minerals or agricultural produce, as it's been over the years. And there's a lot of progress towards this. And of course, leverage on technology.
All right.
And that is the increasing trend in all sectors,
Okay. So I want to, you talked about value add, and I think it's a big deal because if we look at things that are done with businesses around the continent, maybe looking towards the value add, because if you look at things that are done with resources that come from Africa, whether you want to talk about, the gold and precious stones, a lot of that is taken in raw form outside of the country, sold back onto the continent, and you wonder how does that happen, one. Two, you look at things like cocoa. Cocoa is taken, it's made into chocolate, done all sorts of things, come back, sold, highly expensive, again, to Africa. Look at coffee, look at tea, the different variants of things that are done with that. Raw form taken from here, sold back to us in that value add. How can businesses that are domiciled here take advantage of the fact that the minimal or the raw material is here, and then scale that up to where the actual value add comes in, but sold on the international market? Do we see challenges of tariffs? We've seen that world has opened up a little bit. Why is that so difficult for us to make the connection?
That's a very good question. And over the years, it has been the easier thing to do, to just produce and sell without focusing on the next level of value addition. And that's how the international markets were created for us over the years. This is how, to be very straight and to the point, the international economies were built using our resources. Yeah. But the leadership has changed its focus. Now we're looking at, like I said earlier on, if you look at the infrastructure, even layout, the roads and rails that were done over the years are designed to do exactly what you're just saying, extracting our material, raw materials.
All roads lead out.
Yes, they lead out. Yeah. The infrastructure gap for us to reconnect our markets is no less than $100 billion a year. We have to attract investments to connect our markets. We have to create conducive environment to facilitate the next level of production, which is value addition. And there's a lot of progress towards that. Take, for instance, agriculture for us, tea. Not long ago, we had a market study that we carried in DRC. And a lot of that tea comes from markets that buy from Kenya, gets re-exported back to African markets who don't produce tea. We've had long discussions with the relevant players in our economy through the African market to see how we can start connecting African markets through value addition that is going to take place in Kenya. We are very promoting common user facilities that will provide an opportunity for even small-scale traders of tea and coffee to value add, diversify the nature of the product. And through Kenya National Chamber of Commerce, we're looking at how we can provide them markets in Africa before even we go anywhere. So it's a necessary step. The legal and regulatory environments are being addressed to promote this, and we are taking a leading role as KNCCI to support our businesses access these markets through value-added products. Yeah.
But there is a way then that we can take advantage of technology as Africa and make this even better. Yeah, I know you tried to hint on it, but maybe you can delve deeper into that, because the whole world is going that direction.
100%.
And if Africa can just grab that opportunity, and now you know that we are the continent that everybody's eyeing even more than they used to before. So how do we take advantage of technology at this point?
To start with, we have to be proud of ourselves as a country. We are a technology hub for sub-Saharan Africa. We've done very well on fintech. We've done very well on e-commerce. We've done very well on using social media to promote businesses such as and open up marketplace. We've done very well in setting up digital services such as BPOs. The platform is there for us. The skills, the youth, we have learned population, and the embracing of AI, blockchain, and e-commerce is the way to go. And most of our international markets today are linked from our businesses here through technology. So it's a trend that is already there. It has already taken shape, and it's spreading very fast in Africa. We're looking at this summit to do exactly that, continue promoting innovation of technology and promote digitalization of trade across Africa.
Just on a light note, you know that AI has come with different you know, it could work for us or against us. And perhaps it would be very important to, give proper trainings around it, because then I think it's very crucial, the AI happenings.
Yeah.
And there are markets, global markets, that oddly enough, or markets for produce, that the centers of auction were characterized by the simple fact that they didn't even grow that particular produce.
I tell you an example. The largest exporter of avocado, guess who it is? Netherlands. They don't have a single tree of avocado.
Oh, they understood that perfectly. They have neighbors who, for 319 years, were the center of tea auctions. So, and not even a leaf. Not even a potted plant. But I mention this because it has changed.
Yeah.
Outside Colombo in Sri Lanka, Mombasa, second largest tea auction center on the planet. This center was set up in 1969. East Africa grows a heck of a lot of tea. Okay? There are people who grow more tea than us. India grows more tea than us. China grows more tea than us. But they tend to consume their teas. Okay? Now, I'm using this as an example. And then if you go across to Tanzania, the late President Magufuli started doing the very thing we're discussing. They have gold. And it was being carted off with earth around it. They said, hold it, hold it. What would it take for us to actually give the finished product here? See, a decision has to be made at some point. Like, for instance, we have iron ore. We have steel factories. Do we have factories that smelt iron ore? See, decisions have to be made. Now, so long as there are these terrible twins, a country where people who are in business are owed colossal amounts of money, which there seems to be no sight in when they're going to be paid. Clear indication that whatever growth will definitely be hampered. Then you have a situation where you actually do have natural resources and you do not see a clear path as to how the country is going to take the natural resource to the next stage where we have that value add that gives us the power to do the very trade that we're talking about. Because that's the power that our friends and neighbors and relatives in Europe and America
who
have
developed,
Yes, exactly. So it's all good and well to talk about what they do, but the question is, are we saying that we're not able to do what they do? Is that what we're saying? That we are unable to?
That's what we should challenge ourselves on.
Yes.
We can do, and we should do, and we've started doing it.
Do you see that the chamber would be able to work as a liaison then in one case, or does it already work as liaison between government and these businesses? Because there are certain things that seem to me that stand as bottlenecks. If there are businesses who are working and are owed money, it's difficult for them to pass through. If there are businesses who would like to take from point A to point B, but then you're met with, a whole basket full of licenses that you must have, for example. If we have the agreement, for example, that was done between the UAE and Kenya, and we asked this question to the PS the other day in terms of what implementation infrastructure is in place to ensure that this agreement does not go up like, one case in point, AGOA, whereby the project or the act was in place for decades, but then can we see that something was actually done with the opportunity that was presented? So how can we actually make sure, and does the chamber then leverage between government and all this infrastructure that's needed, and then passing that on to these businesses who can compete in Kenya, who can compete in Africa, who can compete on the globe?
You just hit the nail on the head. That's the main purpose of our stay at Kenya National Chamber of Commerce, to bridge between businesses and government on all the issues that you've raised. All these pain points that our businesses go through are our pain. And that's what keeps us in office and on a day-to-day basis engage with government. For our members to access these markets our country has signed through this bilateral trade agreement, they will remain in the shelves for as long as private sector is not involved. And we are the ones who have stepped up to make sure that we engage with government and pack the values provided in that bilateral trade agreement and customize it for our members.
Yeah, because isn't that what happens on an international scale? If you want to just, use the US, for example, that dug deep after the Second World War, and, now when the world was in a state of peace, call it, manufactured or otherwise, that private business started to ramp up. Whether you look at, what happened with, in the 20s and the 30s with the gold that was coming out of California, or the Jews who left Europe and now came to settle in certain states, and they came with their business acumen. It was private organizations, it was private companies, and the small, medium, large organizations who set up the banks. They're the ones who set up, the stores. They're the ones who set up the big outlets that we see today. But the thing is that they were backed by government.
100%. The Marshall Plan is what revived the global economy after World War II. I'm totally with you there. It has to be private sector to push the envelope. The government should be there to provide the necessary environment,
right,
supportive infrastructure for private sector to take on the mandate of reviving and running the economy. Government should not be in the business of doing business. Government should be in the business of providing supportive and facilitative environment. And that's what we're there as KNCCI, to work closely with government to make sure that we create that symbiotic environment, that we as the private sector should take on government on matters that we believe, if not addressed, we're going to lose our competitive advantage. Not just as a country, but as an economy in Africa.
But let me ask the question, do we have any competitive advantage as we speak?
We do plenty.
Give me an example, just two.
You cannot compare anyone to Kenya when it comes to logistics advantages in connecting African market. From Kenya as a hub, you can access any markets easily through our ports, through our international airlines. We have 4 international airports. That you cannot take away from us as a country.
That's 1, 2. I'm putting you to task, but there's a reason why I'm doing this.
I agree with you. You cannot take away from the fact that we are ranked number 1 in terms of human resource on innovation and research. We provide the best skill force you can ever want, that anyone will need or wish for when it comes to trade and investments. We need to harness on that. We need to leverage on that.
And yet, we are trailing behind the Asian tigers because when you talk about what we have, what should then follow is how it is foreign investment queue to come here. They do queue.
Exactly.
They do. It's not as though they don't want to come here. They do. But that enabling environment that we speak of doesn't quite allow them to. The number of foreign investors who would like to come and invest here are very, very many. Simple fact. Now, the voice that the commercial world, the industrial world, the business world has seems to have dimmed. I'm saying it has dimmed because government policy, if indeed, as we state in theory, it's supposed to be to create an enabling environment, the big question is, how enabling is this environment, and is it actually being created, or is it being stifled? Because if indeed it was being created and you look at the demand, then the issues we keep speaking of would not really exist. The unemployment issue we'd be seeing a diminishing curve. That's not what we see. When it comes to the issue of even our own revenues, it should be an increase. That's not quite what we see. So there seems to be some incongruence here. There is a demand for people to do business here, but for some reason, we are not taking full advantage of it. What is stopping us?
And maybe just to add, it's one thing to create an environment, it's another thing to make it sustainable. And it's just important to understand if maybe the summit would come with other interventions that would make the environment more sustainable rather than just creating it for the businesses globally.
I couldn't agree more with you, CT and yourself.
Doris.
Dorcas.
Doris.
Doris.
Yes. Yeah. Dorcas is the other colleague who is in the other program.
Yeah, fair enough. It's okay.
Doris.
Yes, Doris.
Yes. You've just spoken to my day job as the CEO of Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and us as private sector. This is what keeps us awake at night. This is what we have to keep driving until we get there. And this summit is going to provide an opportunity to have deeper discussions at a much higher and global level on issues to do with policy, issues to do with legislative environment, protocols that need to be adopted at the continental level that can be cascaded to bring down the walls of our borders for us to work together as one market in Africa. But within the country, city, that's the reality of our marketplace. The two sides of a coin that seem to struggle to exist together. We will keep pushing the envelope to a point where the next time we speak, we hope we'll be looking at the successes of the private sector to address some of these issues you've talked about.
You know, a key artery to our business is the Nairobi-Malaba Road. Okay? Key. There are 30 police checks. 30. You actually wonder, what, do we grow policemen on the roadside?
This is where they flourish.
This is where we plant them to grow better, to become better. The cost of logistics on this continent is prohibitive. If you compare it with, say, just Europe, the total cost of a product there, if you throw in the logistics, it's around 6 to 8% in Europe. Here, it's 40% plus. Now, again, it's something that must be addressed. True, in this country, there is a definitive and definite effort to improve on those logistics. There's no question about it. We see it. There is. The problem is, we are scratching the surface. We could do a lot better.
And I agree.
Yes.
I agree 100%.
And comparing ourselves to the poorer neighbors, man, if we are doing well, how badly must our neighbors be doing?
We don't want to be the tallest among the pygmies.
No.
Yeah, it must be much better. Must be much better. Well, look, the summit happens in April, and that's where businesses will then have an opportunity to showcase, what they can do, and then look at opportunities for what business can present itself on the continent. And I'm rooting for intra-Africa trade first before we go anywhere
100%.
else. That's what I'm rooting for, and I hope that becomes, the swan song, even as you go into this. But want to thank you for being here with us this morning. Ahmed Farah is the CEO of the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and he's been with our guest this hour. Even as you go, you're going to take a break at some point today. Yeah. You must. And we're going to offer you a cup of Delamere yogurt. And if you look at that, you'll see that it's real pieces of the real ingredients. If you take the strawberry, depending on what CT fancies to give you this morning, you will have real fruit. Or if he gives you the lemon and biscuit, you'll have real biscuits and real lemon in it.
What do you prefer, biscuits or strawberry?
I will take whatever you give me.
Oh, you see, there you go.
We'll have the biscuit.
So, it's an moment that you have with Delamere when you take your break through the day after being with us this morning.
Karibu.
Asante Sana, thanks for being us. We're going to have a health conversation coming up next at 8 o'clock. It's been a business one this hour. Let's see what happens when we talk health after 8. Good morning. It's 8 a.m.
Asante Sana. Let me just give you my side doors.